I'm here with Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan from the University of Calgary's Workland School of Education, and we're going to talk about the usage of AI in education, as well as some of the very interesting projects that Dr. Sabbaghan has been a part of, which are related to helping instructors as well as students potentially using AI to facilitate their education. And so really to get started, could you please tell us a bit about your background, kind of how you got to where you are with your interest in AI, and then maybe also lead into your projects and how you ended up building COREI and SMARTIE.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I am an associate professor here at Workland School of Education, and I hold double PhDs in language learning, second language learning, and mathematics education. So I have a math background and a language background, and I think the intersection of mathematics and languages is generative AI. So this is a space that I feel very comfortable in. As with generative AI or AI, I've always been fascinated with technology and how we could apply it to enhance the learning experience. And I think I became aware of generative AI very late 2021 when GPT-2 came out. And Dr. Sarit actually forwarded a paper on GPT-2 and its potential to help students with writing. And at the time, GPT-2 was horrible. It couldn't do anything. But the concept of using technology or artificial intelligence that can process information like a human-like manner, that fascinated me. And I started my journey down the rabbit hole of generative AI, started learning about what it is, how to program it, how to access it, and actually started with GPT-3, and then ChatGPT came out, and the world changed. I think the first real program I wrote was SMARTIE. And I wrote it because I'm also the director of equity, diversity, and inclusion here at Workland. And in having conversation with faculty members, I came to a realization that there's so much information on equity, diversity, and inclusion out there that it was overwhelming. And faculty were having difficulty applying all the information out there. And I thought, okay, this may be a space where generative AI could help us. So I created SMARTIE with that purpose in mind, to help integrate some of the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, particularly inclusion, into course design. And if you work with it, you realize that there's always an equity angle in whatever lesson plan design that the bot spits out. There is an assessment bot, and you can play around with different forms of rubric design. You can ask it to redesign rubrics based on a disability. So it provides you with a range of opportunities to be inclusive in your classroom.
Okay, I see. So it's almost like you took AI and it was this way to filter through the sea of information related to EDI and help educators come up with something without having to go through all of that themselves. It's almost like a filter that does the work for them.
Well, I would say yes, and at the end of the day, faculty members are probably much better in applying these principles, much better than I am. But SMARTIE and the philosophy behind it was, let me give you a series of recommendations really quickly, and then you can see which one works for your context. Now, normally this would take a long time to do. It's very difficult to implement this, but SMARTIE was able to, help educators implement really quickly. Does that make sense?
So it's like this co-creation tool where the human and the AI work together and
Yeah.
they can come up with something.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good example of human AI collaboration.
Okay, I see. And then another thing that's very interesting, fascinates me a little bit about SMARTIE is equity, diversity, and inclusion. Maybe they might be a little bit subjective to different people. They might have different definitions of what it is to them. And so when we use AI, do you think we are almost putting objective standards onto that equity, diversity, inclusion, where there might be less room for people's subjective interpretation? Or do you think it actually helps people where we can apply these standards and then they can co-create with it afterwards and apply their interpretation afterwards?
Well, I know that in the back end there are a set of principles that I've set for different applications of SMARTIE to apply. Generative AI being generative, each time you run it, it's going to have a different interpretation of those principles depending on whatever prompt it is that you're giving it. So I think that I'm not sure that we're objectifying EDI. We're trying to see different interpretations of principles of inclusion, principles of equity being enacted. And the remarkable thing about this is that the user, the faculty member, or the pre-service teacher, or the person who's interested in the space gets to see the different enactments or different interpretations of these principles being applied, and then they could decide. They're the human in the loop, right? At the end of the day, they decide which enactment fits with their context.
Okay, got it. So it's almost like someone you bounce ideas off of, and then at the end of the day, it's up to you what you end up with as your final product.
Yeah, with generative AI, at the end of the day, it's always up to you.
Yeah, very interesting. And so I guess to maybe build off of that, so while I was playing around with SMARTIE, there were different features. So for example, you can see if your material, your reading list is inclusive, or you can see if your activities count as experiential learning. It's almost like this evaluative component which you can have. And so I was wondering maybe your opinions or the opinions of educators in the broader community about taking that evaluative component and applying it to students. Because sometimes, let's say you submit an essay, students have to wait a week or something to get their feedback, and it's not always the fastest process. They might want to get their feedback quickly. And I was wondering what your thoughts are on using AI for feedback and actually assessment for student learning and in that process.
You've talked about two different notions. There's the assessment piece, and then there is the feedback piece.
Yeah.
I'm all for creating bots that help students fine-tune their thinking or their writing, or you might have a bot providing recommendations or suggestions. I am against AI doing any sort of judgment, so any sort of assessment. I don't think that we're there yet. Maybe in a couple of years we'll have AIs that can really explain why they've assessed a certain way and bring reasoning. And a human can take a look at that reasoning and say, that makes sense, or that doesn't make sense. But certainly, I think there's room with, for example, the other bot, COREI, to think about using AI as a means of providing feedback on writing or providing feedback on a theoretical framework that you selected or the structure of your paper. And you can take a look at it and negotiate with the AI to go in the direction that you want. I don't think this technology is ever meant to tell you what to do. It's meant to be collaborative. You're always supposed to bounce ideas off of it and kind of go in the direction that you feel comfortable, a direction that highlights or emphasizes your voice, rather than sitting there saying, oh, the AI said that. That must be correct, so I'll write that. That shouldn't be the philosophy behind using this technology.
Yeah, 100%. And then do you think with new models like GPT-o1, which do have that chain of thought, you think that would maybe change the way that you would view them as assessment tools, or do you think your views would still be pretty similar?
I would be I would be more comfortable if they actually showed us the chain of thoughts, but they don't, right? So even if you ask right now GPT O Mini or the preview version to give you the trend of thoughts, you can get banned. Yeah. So OpenAI does not want you to see the thinking process. But if we do have models that show the thinking process, or that we ask a model to think in a particular way, say for example we have a project plan, and we have principles of what good project planning is, and we ask the AI to search for a very specific thing within that project, and then tell the students, here is all the things you got right. Here are the bits that are missing. Maybe you should think about them. And this could be an iterative process where you would keep inputting your comments into this AI bot until the AI says, look, as far as I know, all the conditions or all the criteria needed for a good project plan is here in this document. I would be comfortable with that, but not for grading.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and I guess because grading does have implications, obviously students, they want to go to a certain university, they have a certain career path, their grades definitely are important. So we should probably be cautious before taking steps of that nature. But I guess in a similar vein with this idea of chain of thought, do you think if we had a model like O1 where they weren't hiding the chain of thought, do you think it would be valuable to have students look at that chain of thought, how the AI approaches problems, and then maybe try to have them learn from that to see different problem-solving approaches?
Yes, and I think in the future, the workplace will be very different, having AIs doing all sorts of things. In this regard, Geoffrey Hinton, the Nobel laureate for AI, he talked about elastic and non-elastic jobs. And he said where a physician has an elastic job, there's a lot of judgment involved, there's a lot of data analysis involved, and it's very, very unlikely that an AI would be able to replace a physician because of its complexity, its elasticity. But a non-elastic job might be a receptionist that takes a call, makes a booking, takes a call, makes a booking. And in those non-elastic situations, that AI might be able to replace that person. So with regards to your question, I think that when it comes to elastic jobs, these AIs and their trend of thoughts are going to be very important for the future, the next generation of workers, to look at what an AI did and judge as a human if that's the direction they want to go or not to go, but judge. Meaning that they need to have the expertise to actually judge at what an AI did. I think it would be horrible, probably not a direction we want to take, that would have people look at what an AI did and trust it blindly. So I think that developing expertise is really important, and I think that universities are responsible for that. Non-elastic jobs, I don't think is going to be important. I think that in a lot of instances, non-elastic jobs would just be replaced by AI.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think I've even seen somebody created an entire AI receptionist where it would answer phone calls, book appointments, manage the person's calendar. And I guess that would be an example of one of those inelastic jobs. Yeah. I think another interesting thing is for students who are growing up in this AI age where this is what they're used to and this is what they use in school, I wonder if they're going to kind of grow up with this idea that they'll just trust what the AI says because that's how they've been doing their assignments, and that's how the first thing they do when they have a problem is just go to ChatGPT, and then they take that output and then they trust it better than their own judgment. Do you think that will have perhaps any implications, or is there a way that schools can counteract that?
I think it's part of AI literacy, right? If you think about that, so I've had this conversation with high schoolers. think about this for a moment. If you give a problem to ChatGPT for you to solve, and you get an A, that A is useless because ChatGPT will replace you because it did what you couldn't do. So what is the value of that A for you? And it's very, very important to kind of help people understand that I think future society will rely on human judgment or expert humans to make decisions, even if an AI produces multiple solutions. So I can see a situation where very complex problems are analyzed by AI and multiple solutions are offered. They all seem right. How do we know which one to choose? We need to rely on experts, people who understand context, understand nuance, understand how society works. So these are really, really important elements that we need to develop within our curriculum now in our school systems and help people understand that solely relying on artificial intelligence is probably not the way to go, because in the future you might have 4 different ways to solve something. Then what? Are you going to enact all 4 different ways? You need to know which one is best for your context. Therefore, you need to have a really deep understanding, not only of the content, but also the context, the environment that you're setting, the people who are going to be affected by those solutions.
Okay, got it. And then I think a lot of students who are growing up in this AI age, they're definitely questioning what the future will look like, what kind of jobs will be around for them, and if the stuff they're even learning in school will be relevant down the line. So for those students who are wondering what they should do to compete in an AI-dominated world, what would you maybe suggest to them?
I would just go back to Jeffrey Hinton. Non-elastic jobs are the way to go. It's very improbable that AI, at least I'm going to say this and it's going to be recorded, in our lifetime will become super intelligent where we could actually trust its judgment. And even if when it becomes super intelligent, I'm not 100% sure. But we're going to, I think a lot of students today are going to be in a position to judge AI work. And in order to be able to judge AI work, they really have to be experts in their field. And to become experts in your field, you have to make sense of the content. You have to struggle. You'd have to solve problems, difficult problems yourself, and experience those tensions so that you can make good judgment. It's probably a bad idea to have AI do all the work for you, because you'll never establish that sense of judgment, that sense of expertise. And if you don't have that expertise, it doesn't matter if you have a degree, you're not going to get hired.
Yeah, fair enough. And then do you think there's a way to encourage students to actually go through that struggle? Because when you have the option of going to ChatGPT and getting an answer right away versus going through that struggle yourself, of course, a lot of students are naturally going to go towards the first option. So is there something schools can do or educators can do to steer students towards embracing the struggle and being willing to go through that?
It all goes back to, why are you here? Why is it, are you here to get a job? Are you here to develop expertise? Are you here to get a passing grade? Why are you here? If you're here to just get a job, if you rely on ChatGPT or other generative AI, it's not going to happen. Like I said, you need to develop expertise. The only way you can develop expertise is go through the struggle. There is no other way. I wish the technology would, maybe AI could present us with technology where we can just have plug and play. But until that time comes, you have to go through the struggle. So if you're here to learn, if you're here to get a job, if you are here to contribute to society, there is no way other than to go through the struggle. If you're here just to get an A or get a degree, That's fine. You can do that with AI, but there will be no jobs for you.
Very interesting. So it's almost as if the future is looking for people who have that ability to judge AI's work and are not just relying on its output only. Is that kind of what you mean by there is not a job for you? Is that if you don't have the ability to judge AI,
Yes.
you will not?
Yes. Like I said, there's not one solution. People are going to go into industry. People are going to become physicians. They're going to be pharmacists. They're going to do all sorts of things. And when they present AI with a problem, multiple solutions can be provided. If you don't have the expertise to select which solution works best for Eastern Canada and which solutions work best for Western Canada, then I'm not really sure companies would be very interested in hiring you. And the only way you would know that is you've gone through the struggle, you have a nuanced understanding of what those contexts are, who the people are, the impact of whatever intervention it is that you want to implement, and then you're able to articulate your decision, the choice for your decision judiciously, so that your peers would accept it.
Do you think then it's almost as if students should steer towards being specialists in something rather than maybe kind of this generalist idea?
I think that's probably a very good way to go. There's also, we don't know how industry is going to unfold. So you might need to become specialist in several areas rather than one. And I think that's possible because, for example, you might be able to judge in a particular way, but right now it might be very difficult to articulate that judgment because you have to write it up and all that. But AI can do that writing bit for you, which frees up time for you to do the thinking bit. So instead of writing one project plan, you write 3. And you say, for example, that I've written 3 for 3 different contexts, and I think we should do it differently. Even if the contexts remain the same, other variables might be different. It might be a time variable. It might be a seasonal variable. It might be political landscape. And you would say, look, under these conditions, we'll go this way. Under these conditions, we'll go this way. Under these conditions, we don't have that at the moment because it's just so difficult to do that. But with generative AI, we have a little bit more wiggle room and freedom to be able to articulate our thoughts in multiple ways for multiple contexts. And again, that's something not afforded to us at the moment, but I think in 2 or 3 years, that's going to be the norm.
Yeah, and I think also it's that efficiency aspect that makes AI so good. Because normally it would take you weeks or however long to make a project proposal, but now at snap of a finger, I can almost make 3 of them and then see which one is the direction that I want to go in. So sometimes when people say that, like AI, maybe the quality is not as good as this professional author or it's not as good as this professional, I wonder if that's even the point of it, because I think the efficiency is also something really important to consider.
Efficiency so if you make 3 different plans with an AI, say you go through multiple iterations with the AI to get that plan where you want it to go. It's not like, I'm going to press this button, it's going to spit out a plan, I'm going to submit it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you having an understanding of exactly what it is that you want to do, and then you collaborate with the AI in order to create that, whatever it is. And then when you present it to your peers, or a professor, or an expert panel, you're able to articulate why this plan works for this particular context. And if you can do that, then it's a win. If you can't do that, then it's not a win, and you have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a quote as well from one of my professors. He said, if you prompt GPT only one time, you're stupid. So you have to keep going with it, you have to work with it iteratively.
Yeah.